Okay, we have successfully deployed to Heroku. We have our server running on it, but right now our server isn't doing very much. We need to now move on to getting Postgres working. And so in order to do that, we are going to go over to Heroku and get to the Resources tab. So far we've looked at deployment and overview. Go to the Resources tab in Heroku on your project, and in here you'll notice you have an add-ons section. And in this add-ons section, type posts. As soon as you start typing, it'll come up. I've not used this one down here. I suppose if I ever do a MySQL project, I might look at it. But this is the one we want. So we're going to click on this. And then you get this window pop up where you can pick your plan. You have all these different price points. You're certainly free to select the Shield 8 program, but as for me, I will pick the hobby development and then click provision. And that is going to add Postgres. So we have Postgres now hooked into our Heroku app, but now we need to set it up. So one of the things that, remember in our code base that I talked about a couple of videos ago, was about environment variables and how we use environment variables for the environment that we're working in. We set a .env file in code that told us to run, for instance, on port 5000. And then if you recall, I explained how in Heroku we also could set environment variables there for when our app is running on Heroku. And so what I'm going to show you now is go back to Heroku, and I'm going to show you where Heroku stores these environment variables. So we've added Heroku Postgres. So now go to the Settings tab in Heroku. And then down here you have the section, Reveal Config Variables. Well, config variables are synonymous with environment variables. So this is Heroku's section where you set environment variables. So let's click on this. And we have where we can set our environment variables. Think of this section right here as the .env file in our code base. And look at, when we added Postgres, we got our very first environment variable in Heroku given to us and set up for us ahead of time. We have an environment variable, a constant by the name of database underscore URL, which points to our Postgres database. Very cool stuff. And so this is where we're going to add another environment variable in a minute. I'll explain it. So now that we have a Postgres database, now we need to go back to our code base and adjust our connects file for use with Postgres. So let's close this environment file, and this is our connects file. And so right now our connects file, we have one object in it called development, and it is running a SQLite client. And then we have this object here that connects to the database, which is literally right here. Well, we're going to add another object now for production. And this object, its client is PG. But we haven't installed this dependency, so in our package.json, we've only installed SQLite. So we need to install Postgres. So let's do that now in the terminal. I am going to clear this terminal and say yarn add PG, or you can npm install it if you wish. So we're going to add Postgres, and you should do the same. And so now if we look at we have Postgres added. Very good. Save this package.json file, close it. And so now that we have PG added, we can set, we don't need to set this use null as default because that was unique and particular to SQLite. So next we're going to set the connection. So connection, and the connection, according to the connects documentation, can be either an object, like we have right here, or it can be a string that points to the database. So in SQLite, we literally set it up as an object that literally was this DB3 file. This literally points to this file right here, one big giant object. But for Postgres, we need something that's going to point it to our Postgres table. And what points to our Postgres table? This does. So we can point it to this by making use of this environment variable. So let's copy this environment variable right here called database URL. And so the connection, we're going to make it equal to process.env. That's how we get access to that variable, dot, and then paste that variable. So in development mode, our connection is pointing to this. When we're running in production mode, it's going to point to this value, and this value right here points to that Postgres string. Okay, very good. The next thing is we need to set the pool. I'm not super educated on the pool and changing the values. All I know is the connects documentation says that it's required, and the default values that connects documentation gives has always worked for me, and I've never ever had to change it. A true, database administrator person who that was their entire job, they could probably explain this much better. But for right now, we just set the default values, min of 2 and max of 10. And then we need to set migrations to tell it where the migrations are going to be. Oh, we need to put a comma. Don't forget your commas. We need to set a migrations, so we're going to first set a table name, and we'll call it connects_migrations, comma after that, and then we need a directory to where we're going to store the migration. And I'm going to point it to this directory right here. So I'm going to say dot migrations. And that's it for this connects file. Okay, so when our Heroku app runs, how does it know which one of these objects to pull from? We've set the connection equal to this string here, but how does it know to pick this versus this right here? How does it know to pick one or the other? And if you recall, we made this sort of choice in our dbconfig file. So in our dbconfig file, we literally make this choice right here. We say, put in this variable right here, either the value here if it's present, and if it's not present, then stick development. And since we were running in development, we never stuck this value in our .env file, knowing that by not having that value, then this half of this OR statement would run. But now we need to set this value. We need to set this value in Heroku, where Heroku's environment variables are stored. That way when Heroku encounters this dbconfig file, it's going to look for this, and if it finds this with the key value pair of db environment with the value of production, then it will put that value here, and that'll tell our connects file right here which one of those two, this one or this one, to run. That's what this second line is doing. It's saying, put into this variable here this file and this particular object in that file. This object or this object. One of those two is going to go into this variable right here. This top line tells us which one to select and puts it here, and then this one grabs it literally out of the connects file, and then that's what we export. So we need to put this value, copy this value, db_environment. We're going to put this in Heroku. Heroku gave us an environment variable here, but we can also add more. And so let's paste that right there. And we're going to stick the value production and click add. So now when Heroku runs our file, it's going to it's going to come across this file and it's going to find a value in this variable, and it's going to return the key value pair, the word production, into here, and it'll run it. And when we're on our local environment, running it on our local machine, well, we're not looking at Heroku. Then we're going to go to here, and it won't find that value. So then it'll run it in development mode. I hope that's clear. So let's save this. Well, it's saved. Let's commit it. We have to commit our changes so Heroku will automatically redeploy. So added production object to connects file. All right, that's a good one. Add all those. Click push. And our Heroku, if we go to the overview tab, it should be redeploying here in a minute. We'll wait for it to redeploy. There we go. Takes a little bit of time. I really like the feature of automatic redeployments. All right, should be done pretty quick here. All right, just about done. Let's just go refresh this to make sure the server's still spinning up. We didn't stick a comma or an accidental syntactical error. No, this looks good. And so now, if I try to look at the tables like /API/lessons, it should give us an error because those tables, we haven't built them. So let's just hit enter. Unable to retrieve lessons. And what's happening there is if we go to our routes for lessons, we're trying to perform this right here, that get. And what's happening is it's saying, go to the Postgres database and run this find command and it'll give me back all lessons. But right here it's failing, so it's popping down to this catch, unable to retrieve lessons. That's that message that we just got. And it's doing that because, if you recall, we never built the tables for Postgres. We ran our migrations for SQLite, but we never ran any migrations that actually built our two tables here in Postgres, and we need to do that. And so in order to do that, we need to install Heroku's command line interface. But before we do that, so when I ran the migrations last time, several videos back when we were running the migrations to create our SQLite tables, I had not installed connects globally. So I had to create every one of my commands with the word npx connects migrate something or other. But I think it would be more helpful for us if we actually install connects globally. So if you haven't done so already, run either an npm I or a yarn add, and it would be like yarn add connects with the -g flag. So run that to install connects globally, and that'll make running our migrations through the Heroku command line tool just a little bit easier. So go ahead and do that. And then after you've done that, pause the video if you need to. Now we're going to go to Heroku, and in a search tool, type Heroku CLI for command line interface. So and up here the Heroku CLI, click on that, and this is how you install Heroku's command line interface. So if you have a Mac, you can just stick this in a terminal and run it, or you can do it the long way. You have Windows, I think 8 or above is 64-bit. Don't quote me. You can look and, Windows people, I assume you guys know which one of these is more important to you. So, and then Ubuntu, I have no experience with that. So install the Heroku command line interface, and then right after you install it, this is very important, close all your terminals. Don't just kind of close them, but actually close. Like I'm going to close it with the trash can here in VS Code. or if you're running like an iTerminal or something like that, go up to like program and quit program, and then reopen it, and then the Heroku command line tool will be activated. I've run into problems coaching people who installed the Heroku command line tool and then didn't close and reopen their terminal, and things didn't work right. So I'm going to close my terminal, and now I'm going to reopen it again. And after you've installed the Heroku command line interface, you'll know that it works is if after closing and reopening your terminal and you type the word Heroku and hit enter, it should give you this long list of commands. So if after installing Heroku and then you just type the word Heroku here and you get this, you're right along with us. Okay, so now I'm going to assume that you got everything, you got Heroku installed and you got this showing up. So now we just need to run our migrations, and in order to do that, we type the word Heroku run connects migrate with a colon latest with the then dash A. Dash A means what app. So this is saying Heroku run migrations, and it's going to say, and Heroku's saying for what app. And then you have to give it dash A and a space. Then you have to give it your app name, and your app name is literally at the top of your. Let me close this one. Your app name is literally at the top of your Heroku console right here. So I'm going to copy that. That's the app name on Heroku. I'm going to copy that, and I am going to, if I can get my Windows thing out of the way, there we go, and I'm going to paste it right there at the bottom. In fact, let me move my terminal to the right. Move panel right. It still puts it to the bottom, which is, so anyway, Heroku run connects. See, we didn't have to put in npx connects in front of that because we installed connects globally. So Heroku run connects migrate latest dash A this app, and then hit enter, and it should run your migrations. So it's thinking, it's doing its thing. Boom, it ran the migrations. So now we have those two tables built. They're empty, but they're built. And let me show that they're empty. So if not there, let me see. If I go to Google and I go to here and I go look for API lessons, I shouldn't get this message. I'm going to hit this and I'm going to hit raw. And then now see, so now I don't get that message. I get an empty array bracket, which shows that it's an empty table, completely empty. There's no data there, but I do not get that error message. So we have tables that are ready for information. Okay, so let's go to Postman or Insomnia and make some posts and add some data. So if I let's copy this, because this is what we're going to have to paste into Postman, not localhost 5000 anymore. Now we have a fully deployed Postgres, tables API that we're going against in Insomnia. And so I'm going to stick that right there, make sure I've got the right one. And let's do a post. And how about I add a couple courses here, like HTML and CSS. And I hit send. Now a very interesting thing's going to happen over here, and then I'm going to show you. So I'm going to hit send, and it's going to say, hey, cannot add lesson. But if I go do a get to that same endpoint, it added it. So what's going on here? It says, it gives me back an internal server error of cannot add a lesson, but it actually adds it anyway. And this is the final little thing that we need to change in our code base. And this has to do with the unique nature of Postgres whenever you perform an insert. So let's go back to our code base. Let's close down this. Let's close down connects. We don't need that anymore. Let's go to our DB helpers. Our models are DB helpers. Our queries that we wrote. Remember our queries? Our insert query, our deletes, our finds, our updates. So any query having to do with an insert, Postgres requires a return object in a very specific format. We returned the entire record, but Postgres doesn't like it. And so we're going to modify this insert. I'm going to comment these out, and I'm going to show you the way that Postgres wants it. This is very important. This little error has gotten several junior programmers where they just sit there and go, what is going on? Everything looks good. It works perfect in SQLite. I don't understand. And you're thinking that you have, and then you start going other places in your code base, you're making changes, thinking that you're making a mistake, and it's not a mistake. It's just the unique nature of Postgres and an insert. And so to fix it, we're going to say return await db lessons dot insert the lesson, and then here's the change. And after insert lesson, put a comma, and then you're going to stick brackets, and then you have to stick quotes, single or double quotes, it doesn't matter, and return the ID. We can also return, like inside this brackets, we can also return like the name if we want. But so here we inserted a lesson, and here we have to insert a lesson and do this returning thing right in here inside of brackets, and then each field name has got to be enclosed in single quotes, separated by comma if you're going to put more than one. And so while we're at it, we have another insert. So this was our insert of a lesson. We also had an insert of a message. Let's go fix that one as well while we're here, right while we're at it. So we have a find add message right here. So let's comment this out right here, and let's return it the way that it wants it returned. We're going to say return await db messages dot where the location, no, lesson underscore ID, and then dot insert message. And now we have to put the comma, because in here we didn't put the comma here. Now we have to put the comma and show the returning value. So I'm going to put in brackets. I'll just return the ID. That'll work. That'll show that it works. And so anyway, let's save this. And now let's commit our changes. Corrected insert functions for PG. And then we'll commit it and push. Go back to Heroku, make sure that everything, go to our overview. This is going to redeploy in a minute. If ever you get an error during redeployment, if ever it doesn't work, you can go to this More tab right here and view the logs. And the logs, it's kind of like this big, crazy long console.log, but it's not as friendly to read, but you can, it will give you clues as to what's going wrong. Like I remember the first time I tried to deploy to Heroku, I forgot to include a start script in my package.json, and it wouldn't work. And then finally, one of my friends said, hey, just go check out the logs and see what's going on. And I checked the logs, and it said right there, it says, looking for start script, can't find the start script. So if you ever get an error, you can go to this More tab and view the logs right there. All right, it said it deployed. Now let's go enter a record. Let's go enter another one. Let's enter, how about we're doing a course on Node. We'll enter that one. And this time we should, there we go. Now we got those two values that we want to return back. And if we do a get, we should have two records now. And there we go. Let's make sure that our add message works. So I got a message here from Greg. saying give me cake or give me death. Let's enter that one. Bingo, it added it, no problemo. And let's get that lesson back and see if our get works, and it works fine. So that's it. We have successfully deployed our project to Heroku. We've converted it from a SQLite to a Postgres database. We've written all 4 CRUD operations. We've performed our queries. We've done almost everything that we need so that a front-end application can use it. There's a few things more that we need to cover in the next couple lessons. One is like authentication and security and cores. So without cores middleware, your front end, for instance, like your React or your Vue or whatever, will not be able to use this until we install the cores middleware. So, but I think this was the big giant lesson that we've been leading up to for the last several lessons, and the next ones are going to be exciting. Thank you.